Tonight, government confirms impending food crisis as it moves to ban exports of locally grown rice, maize and soya bean with immediate effect, with the country set to lose 22.2 billion cedis in revenue, with nearly 1 million farmers estimated to be impacted by the dry spell.
These drought conditions have far-reaching implications for food security and livelihoods, with the following notable consequences. Food shortage. The affected regions contribute about 62% of the country's grain supply.
We'll bring you details as President Akufo-Addo directs Finance Ministry to raise 8 billion cedis to deal with the crisis.
We are seeking to raise about $500 million, the equivalent of 8 billion Ghana cedis, to fund the crisis response program.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Telecel, connecting energies and holding insecticide spray and coil. Enjoy a holy sleep. Government is tonight confirming an impending food crisis. The Agric Minister, Brian Champon, in the last hour has announced a ban on the export of locally grown rice, maize and soya beans with immediate effect. He has been addressing a news conference together with the Defense and Finance Ministers. Preliminary assessment of the impact of the dry spell on 8 regions revealed nearly 500,000 farmers have directly been impacted, with 10.4 billion cedis in revenue already lost. Briefing the media in Accra, Mr. Champon said almost 1 million farmers are at risk of being hit hard.
Preliminary reports indicate that about 928,523 farmers, cropping 1.8 million 557,000 hectares, are at risk. And I'm talking about those at risk. These farmers will lose an estimated investment of 7.4 billion cedis if there is total crop failure. The 928,523 farmers cropping 1.8 million 507,000 hectares, those at risk, they will lose an estimated investment of 7.4 billion if there is total crop failure. The corresponding revenue loss is estimated at 22.2 billion. So the investment is what they put in seeds, in inputs, fertilizers, farm hands, and all that they put into crop. That is 7 billion. The revenue is the sales, what they will derive from the investment that they will make. And that is estimated at 22 billion, representing 10% of agriculture GDP, which in itself is about 220 billion. As at 20th August, 435,872 farmers cultivating an estimated area of 871,000 hectares have been directly affected. So earlier on, I talked about those at risk being 928,523. The 435,872 are those that have been confirmed as affected as at 20th August, and the audit is still ongoing. Maize, rice, groundnut, soya bean, sorghum, millet, and yam are the most widely affected crops across these regions. The affected farmers have lost an estimated investment of 3.5 billion with a corresponding potential revenue of 10.4 billion. So of those affected, not the entire at risk that I mentioned have lost 22 billion. The confirmed affected, they have lost an investment of 3.5 billion and the corresponding potential revenue 10.4 billion. These drought conditions have far-reaching implications for food security and livelihoods, with the following notable consequences. Food shortage. The affected regions contribute about 62% of the country's grain supply. the affected regions. They contribute about 62% of the country's grain supply.
He also announced measures being rolled out by the government to deal with the impending food crisis, including the massive importation of rice and maize and providing affected farmers relief.
With immediate effect, government is placing a ban on the export of grains, including maize, rice, until the situation normalizes. This measure is essential to ensure the availability of these critical crops on the domestic market. Any farmer with stock and interested in selling should contact our district directorates across the country, our district aggregators, or the Directorate of Crops, Ministry of Agriculture. This ensures that farmers do not suffer adversely from this ban. As earlier mentioned, the affected regions contribute over 62% of our grain supply. With the projected shortfall in grain supply, government will tap into the ECOWAS grain reserve and partner with the private sector to bridge the gap. Government will also bring in 300,000 metric tons of maize and 100 metric tons of rice to provide food support to vulnerable farmers who have lost their crop and also for the market. Additionally, we will bring in a total volume of 26,000 metric tons of poultry feed to directly support the poultry industry as maize, their main raw material, severely affected. The following interventions will also be targeted directly at farmers to bring them relief. Cash transfers. We have identified 928,523 farmers cultivating 1.8 million hectares who are at risk, but been able to confirm 435,000. Of the at risk, we have been able to confirm 400,000. Cultivating 871,000 hectares. Government has decided to provide financial support amounting to 1,000 Ghana cedis per hectare to the most vulnerable among these farmers as partial cover for their investment. Government will also provide affected vulnerable farmers with some food grant to enable them meet their minimum nutritional requirement.
And thankfully, we can bring in the Agric Minister himself, Brian Champon, joins us right now. Mr. Champon, thank you for your time here on Top Story. Grateful that we can talk to you on this crisis that you have painted a very important picture for us to appreciate. How are you describing this in terms of its impact on the farmers on the ground, and how quickly can the relief get to those in dire need of them?
Well, thank you very much, Evans, and thank you to your listeners, your loyal listeners. We have confirmed the situation is a terrible one. We have put in the systems. We have announced the measures, and we are going to work with our partners, our stakeholders, to ensure that we are delivering the relief to the farmers and also restore their crop life.
And we've also heard about the ban you've placed tonight on rice, maize, soya beans in terms of export. How are you enforcing this?
Well, as of last week, the security agencies have been put on extremely high alert to ensure that no grains, as we know it, is leaving our borders. So that has indeed started. And the defense minister was there as part of the briefing to ensure the nation that as has been the ban has been placed, they will enforce it to ensure that our grains are protected for the benefit of Ghana.
Based on your estimations, I heard you talk about food shortage. How soon do you expect all of us to start feeling that impact?
So the transitional zone harvest and the northern harvest should come in around the 20th of September. In fact, the early, those who planted early, we should have been seeing their grains on the market in Tamale by now. Clearly, there are no grains on the market now. But we should have the full impact by the end of September. And that is why we are putting in the interventions now to ensure that by September, we have enough grains on the market to ensure that we don't have food shortages or distortions on our food price systems.
Where are we sourcing the additional grains we require? I hear you say we may be importing.
Well, first of all, on maize, we have stakeholder partner countries that we work with. We're tapping into our ECOWAS grain reserve. We contribute to the ECOWAS grain reserve. Ghana contributes. Indeed, some of the reserve warehouses are in Ghana that last year when we had a bumper harvest, we invested in. So we're going to tap into the ECOWAS grain reserve. We also have what we call program grains. We have several programs that we run as a ministry, what we call the SADEP. SADEP has significant grains that we keep up north. We're going to
Hello, Dr. Bright Champa.
Partner countries to also release some grains to us. We have some confirmation from these countries until the deals are formalized. Permit me to keep the country names under wraps for now.
And this is going to cost us quite a bit. From the finance minister's own estimate, some $500 million?
Well, absolutely. And the numbers add up very, very quickly, Evans. 300,000 metric tons of maize at around 250, 280 dollars is north of about $90 million dollars. Then you are bringing in 150,000 metric tons of rice, which is about close to 700 metric tons of $700 per metric ton. That adds up very quickly. We are looking at providing inputs to almost 1 million farmers up north and equally million farmers down south to boost their production to ensure that they can make up for some of the shortfall. That in itself is going to cost about $260 million. So the numbers add up very, very quickly. Given 871,000 acres, we're paying 1,000 cedis per hectare, and we've identified 871,000 hectares. Evans, that alone is 871 million Ghana cedis, and that costs about 54 million or so odd dollars. So if you look at the numbers, it adds up very, very quickly, and we are being conservative with the numbers because a farmer cropping a hectare of farmland is estimated to have invested 10,000 Ghana cedis because the yield on an acre is about 40 bags of 50 kg a bag. So a hectare, which is 2.5 acres, is about 100 bags of maize. You estimate a farmer's revenue from that 100 bags at 300 cedis for the 50 kg bag. It means that for a hectare, a farmer would have lost a potential revenue of 30,000 Ghana cedis. This farmer should have invested about 30%, which is about 10,000 Ghana cedis on the farm. And so if you look at the farmer investment, if we are to go the full haul, then definitely the budget will not be able to support it. And that is why we are providing a blend of relief, which is first food, and then provide them with inputs, and then the cash support to provide a total relief to the farmer. So the numbers are quite large, but we have to find a way to manage the situation with what we have.
The figures are jaw-dropping indeed. Where are we getting the funding from? Where are we sourcing this from, considering that we're trying to maneuver ourselves currently out of an economic crisis already?
Ministry of Food and Agriculture has a budget of about 2.5 billion Ghana cedis for our programs for the year. 1 billion Ghana cedis have been cut off that budget to be put into this relief support. Painfully so, but the exigencies of time calls for such measures, and the finance minister made it clear that looking for money from other ministries' budgets will be difficult. So our budget has been cut, okay, and $1 billion taken out to provide this support to farmers. The contingency vote and fund, I know, will be affected. Some money will come from that, and the contingency actually is for such times. So that is the way to go. I know that one ministry has also been affected. Budget has also been sliced to make room for the government side of the investment, which now stands about close to 2.5 billion taken out of the budget. We have some commitments from our development partners. We've had meetings with them last week. Those things are even still shaping up. As and when they are conclusive, I'm sure the finance minister will announce them.
You consider there's a national security crisis?
Not entirely. You have enough information, you have enough intelligence, you know when the asteroid in this case will hit. And what we are doing now is to put in measures that when the time comes, which is end of September, we have October, we have enough grains to deal with it. And so we are not calling it a national security crisis. We are not declaring a state of emergency. We are calling it a situational a crisis, and we have the capacity to deal with it such that it doesn't affect the farmers, it doesn't affect the lifestyle and livelihood of the farmers, it doesn't affect our food systems. And so we have the capacity to deal with it, and so we will not elevate it to a national security crisis. A situational crisis indeed, Evans, because the farmers have lost a great deal of money, investment that they've put in at the start of the crop season, and that is what we really concerned about.
But a state of emergency declaration will allow you to access emergency funding.
Well, the funding that a situational crisis will also allow us to tap into the situation is there for everybody to see. The state of emergency has elements that deprive the rights of persons, and I don't think that we want to consider a declaration of a state of emergency as per Article 31, 32 of the Constitution. That's really not what we want to do. It's a food crisis. Okay, it's nothing that we cannot deal with, and we will not invite a state of emergency on the country because of this. I think that we are in good hands, and we will pass this exam.
Do you admit, though, that this also comes down to the effectiveness of our irrigation systems? And this, in essence, is just a crisis brought on by dry spell. If you had effective irrigation systems in place, we could be mitigating this outcome.
But I don't know what effective irrigation systems mean, Evans, under the circumstances. Because the irrigation systems that we have in the country, Butanga, Zia, Tamni, and the ones that we are building in our farm, well, let me even leave the ones that we are building in our farm plains because we just started. But all the irrigation schemes that we have in the north, they are delivering. In fact, we did say that we are writing off 90% of the crops in the north. The remaining 10% is from the irrigation scheme. Evans, we do not have enough irrigation schemes in the country to produce all our goods because it's an expensive enterprise, and we need a very long time through aggressive and determined budgetary allocations to put in irrigation systems to be able to deliver on our food systems. We have started this year alone. We have put in 5,000 hectares of our irrigation systems. We have also commenced the procurement of another 15,000 hectares of irrigation systems. When this comes on stream, we will be able to break a gap. But it's something that we have to do over the next 10 years to ensure that our food systems are fully secured. And I think that we are on the right path to delivering these irrigation schemes.
What's the role of the National Food Buffer Stock Company in this?
Well, if you have buffer, like last year, I'm sure last year you saw that our investment yielded a positive result. We had enough food in this country to the extent that there was so much grain, so much maize, that farmers were even complaining that the prices were too low. A 50 kg bag of maize dropped to as low as 145 Ghana cedis. and the farmers were complaining. We have enough food. Buffer stock took advantage of this and procured some of the buffer stock to the extent that their warehouses could contain, and resources that they have. They also procured for the ECOWAS. They are the ones buying the grains for the ECOWAS grain reserve, Evan. So they did their part. We need to put a lot more resources to allow them to perform well. We need to recalibrate the whole buffer stock system and idea, and put in proper systems and funding to allow them to procure and store for such a crisis. We are not there yet, but lessons have been learned, and we know what we have to do.
So the buffer stock company right now hasn't got buffer in place. The stock is not in place to take us through this crisis, at least before you get all the stock in.
Oh, Evans, we are talking about 300,000 metric tons of maize. We're talking about 150,000 metric tons of rice. Let me put this thing in context. We have built 80 warehouses at 1,000 metric tons per warehouse. The entire, in this country, Ghana Republic, the entire government and private sector warehouses dedicated for grains and cereals is about, the installed capacity is about 250,000 metric tons. Government and private sector. Evans, we consume 2.5 million metric tons of maize. We consume 1.4 million metric tons of soya. Millet, sorghum, and the other grains, about 1.5 million metric tons. Evans, that's about 5 million metric tons. Yet we have installed capacity, both government and private sector, of 250,000. So if you take out just what buffer stock controls, which is just about 15,000 metric tons of capacity warehouses, then you cannot say that buffer stock should have enough warehouses to be able to deliver on such a crisis. The capacity is not there. And that is why we are putting up major grain silos. In fact, we are putting up one in Kweu, to be able to take the investment that we have put in our farm plains. You know, our farm plains, Chairman from Atonsu, Kunedu, and such our farm plains, we have put in an investment of 3 billion to do a massive irrigation schemes, in fact, 5,000 hectares. And the grains that are going to come out of there, we're going to keep a portion in the strategic grain silo that we are putting up in Shishi in the Kweu East District. So these are steps that we're taking, but the capacity of buffer stock and our food systems alignment currently will not be able to support, and therefore we need to bring in. Even that, Evans, half of the year is gone. So for maize that we have consumed, we consumed 2.5 million. We still have about 1.2 million to consume for the remainder of the year. We expect the southern sector, with the interventions that we are going to make, to bring in another 500,000 metric tons. There will still be a gap of 500,000. The gap of 500,000 is what government is intervening to bring in 300,000 metric tons. And hopefully, it has started raining up north. From all of last week, from the 20th actually, it started raining in all of the northern region. The forecast that we have received that suggests that it may be able to support the food crop life. We are still looking at the forecast. We are not too sure, but we are looking at it. If luck is on our side and that comes in, that will be able to help infill the other 300,000 requirement that we have. So a lot of planning going on. A lot of forecasting, aggressive solutions are being found, and we know that all in all put together, we will not get to the level of a national food security crisis in the period between now and December. That will not happen.
And today I saw your colleague, the defense minister, with you today. What's the role of the Ghana Armed Forces in this crisis intervention you're rolling out?
First of all, they are protecting our borders. They have sort of a central command role among all those providing security, be it immigration, customs, and the other intelligence agencies operating along the border. Their presence is massive, and we're counting on them to ensure that the ban is enforced.
I'm grateful. That is Dr. Brian Champon, is a Minister for Food and Agriculture. And if you're just joining us, a major developing story tonight with the government confirming the impending food crisis as it moves to ban the export of locally grown rice, maize, and soya bean. As you've just been listening there to Dr. Brian Champon, who is a great minister, everything the government says has been done to avoid a full-blown crisis that will impose food insecurity across the length and breadth of this country. But he said enough to say that by the mid of September, towards the end of September, is when they were expecting food shortages. They are now mobilizing emergency resources to import significant amounts of grains to avert that outcome. I want to bring right now Bismarck Owusu-Nortey. He's the president of the Peasant Farmers Association, joins us right now on the line. Thank you, sir, for your time. And many of your farmers have been hit hard by the dry spell we've been talking about. You've listened to the Agric Minister. Satisfied with the emergency measures you're rolling out?
Well, thank you very much for having me. And as we rightly stated in our press conference we had about a week ago, we recommended some stopgap measures that should be taken by government to ameliorate farmers from the situation we found ourselves in. Some of the key things that we called for, including the provision of input support for farmers who had lost their crops. We also called for provision of food aid, food supplies. We also called for some cash for the farmers who were affected. So listening to the minister today and he advancing the measures that they've put in place to mitigate the effects of the dry spell, I think while some are welcoming, we have some concerns that we hope it should be looked at.
What are these concerns?
In the first place, let me tap onto the most controversial one, then I'll move to the others. The first one had to do with the government resolve to ban the exports of grains. I think that this particular approach is an approach that was not inclusive.
But we need that, don't we?
It didn't take on board the views and concerns and the possible challenges that this might have on farmers.
I mean, what possible challenges could there be, considering that we are in a crisis and we need food right now for this country? Why would you be exporting when your own country needs it?
Yeah, you know, when farmers are producing, I listened to the minister very well. He mentioned, he gave an accurate figure as to the cost farmers incur to produce 1 acre of cereal, in this case maize. So when farmers make their expenses, the expectation is that when they sell, they should be able to recover the investment they made. Now, when you allow for the forces of demand and supply to determine prices, farmers are able to get optimum price for their produce. And in that same way, they're able to recover the loss, the investment that they made. This ban is not a new thing, if you know. Remember, the former minister did same. And farmers had serious challenges because it forced the prices of these products to go down. And farmers couldn't recover the investment they made on their produce. So if you are announcing a ban, the ideal thing is to put in place local measures that will insulate the farmers from any possible low prices. For instance, government could have said that they have set a minimum price to purchase 50 kilogram of maize, where we all agree that that price is enough to cover or offset the cost that farmers borne to produce that particular produce. But that was not done. So what this ban will do is that eventually it will begin to bring down the prices of this product to the extent that farmers will be shortchanged. And I'm not sure that we are comfortable in making a policy to rather have a negative effect on people that we intend to help.
And very detailed concerns that Best Marco we should note. I want you to stay with me because this is such an important subject tonight. And the Best Marco, stay with me. I will also bring in a Greek economist as we begin to analyze what government has been announcing today. Government is deploying the Ghana Armed Forces across our borders to enforce a ban on the export of locally grown rice, maize, soya bean as it confirms this impending food crisis. You really want to stay with us as we break this down, how this may impact you. The minister told us on Top Story a short while ago that we can expect food shortages to hit by mid-September to the end of September, and that is why they're already planning to bring in additional grains from ECOWAS and other countries to try and avert that devastating outcome. Stay with us. News Night starts right now.
It's 3 days to the Joy News National Dialogue on Defending Media Freedom ahead of the December polls. Good evening and welcome to News Night. Tonight, members of Parliament for communities affected by the Akonsombo Dam spillage slam Interministerial Committee insisting that close to a year now, the committee is yet to reach out to them or other community leaders.
Disappointed that committee has not met us even once. Not once.
Up to date, we have never cited that committee in our district.
We'll get to hear from the victims who are set to file a class action against government if compensation is not paid within the next few weeks.
We have said that if government does not do something about compensation, we have spoken to our lawyers. We are headed to court.
Plus, more from Parliament Ad Hoc Committee set up to investigate the spillage, where the Works and Housing Ministry says it would need about 400 million cedis more to fully relocate and resettle victims.
We projected about 600 million cedis to do the project. But currently we have 200 million cedis.
And to that MFL, we're keeping an eye on that unfolding story. The government is tonight deploying Ghana Armed Forces, the military across our borders to enforce a ban that has just been placed on the export of locally grown rice, maize and soya bean as it confirms an impending food crisis on the back of that dry spell.
These drought conditions have far-reaching implications for food security and livelihoods, with the following notable consequences. Food shortage. The affected regions contribute about 62% of the country's grain supply.
It is a race against time now to avert a full-blown crisis across the country as the president directs the finance ministry to raise 8 billion cedis to deal with the crisis. We have the latest for you, plus more from business.
And in business, the finance minister is also worried about the impact of this development on the economy, with inflation could be the major casualty.
And in sports, the 30th Ordinary Congress of the Ghana Football Association has begun at the Ghana Man Soccer Center of Excellence with a new broadcast partner for the Premier League as a key agenda ahead of the upcoming season.
And like I said, we have 3 days to the Joy News National Dialogue on Defending Media Freedom. We'll get to hear from the flag bearer of the NPP about his commitment to defending the freedom and rights of the media in Ghana.
And I don't think that anyone should attack a member of the press, and ask all our supporters to refrain absolutely from doing that.
That and more in this evening's edition of News Night live on Joy 99.7 FM here in Accra, and Kumasi on Love 99.5 FM. We are live on myjoyonline.com. We are back after the break with details.
Everybody likes money, but what do we like more than money? More money! Join the Telecel More Money promo and win money, more money, and even more money. Simply opt in for free and reload your mobile and broadband and be the lucky winner of the 1 million Ghana cedis grand prize. Also win cash prizes of up to 3 million Ghana cedis in the daily and weekly draws. Opt in for free by dialing *500# or send WIN to 500, or you can opt in on the Telecel Play app. The more you reload, the higher chances of winning in the Telecel More Money promo. Keep loading, win, and be a millionaire.
Telecel. Connecting energies.
Terms and conditions apply. This promo is regulated by the NLA on the Caritas Lottery platform.
Couldn't sleep at night. Mosquitoes will be whining my ears, bugging me all night long. Till I got a remedy. Now I'll be spraying them away with holy insecticide spray. Me I go spray them away with holy insecticide spray. When I sleep, me dana mada with holy insecticide spray.
Holy mosquito coil, holy multi-purpose insecticide spray. Dana kron kron. For bulk purchase, call 0302 681582. This advert is FDA approved.
Hello, my name is Mami Akua, an entrepreneur and a mother of two. My work keeps me busy most of the time, and sometimes it takes me away from my family. But the safety and health of my family is very important to me. As a working mother, I cannot afford to take any chances when it comes to matters of health. That is why I signed up for a family healthcare plan from Equity Health Insurance. My family and I have access to over 700 hospitals, clinics, opticians, dentists, pharmacies, and diagnostic centers across the length and breadth of Ghana. With Equity Health Insurance, I no longer have to worry about medical bills. Anytime a member of my family visits a hospital, Equity Health Insurance has got my family and I covered. What about you? Who has got you covered?
Call Equity Health Insurance on 050-660-7910 and talk to them about your family health needs now. Visit equityhealthinsurance.com for more information. Equity Health Insurance, here for you.
Thanks for staying with us here on Newsnight. And Evans, we've been talking about this dry spell here on Newsnight for some time now. 8 regions were hit by it, a number of farmers affected. We've been waiting for that briefing from the Agric Ministry. It finally happened today. It was actually an interministerial briefing today that we got at the Information Ministry. And you've been speaking to the Agric Ministry on this particular issue. But there are some interventions that you want to walk us through on this.
Indeed, and there are preliminary estimates talk about 500,000 farmers directly affected already, an estimated 10.4 billion cedis revenue already lost, and they're estimating that more farmers, up to 1 million farmers, will be hit by the time this is all done, when the dry spell is over and the rain set in. That, in estimate, would hit our pockets 2.2 billion cedis, right? Okay. And that's quite significant. And so the Agric Minister, who was speaking to us a short while ago, has been detailing the emergency measures you're putting in place to try and help farmers affected. One, and not only farmers affected, but also they're anticipating that we're going to have a situation of food shortages later this year. We'll hear him pretty shortly talking about that. But to avert that or to mitigate that, a few things you're doing. They're tapping into the ECOWAS Green Zone to import maize and rice to shore up the country's food reserves. Right now, it's something they're activating. They've also decided to provide most vulnerable farmers 1,000 cedis per hectare, as well as some food grants. We'll hear more from the Peasant Farmers Association. They have some concerns already about this. We also know that fertilizers are a major part of this, and the government is providing some help with this also. Now, as we've heard already, the government, the President, to be very specific, has directed the Finance Minister to raise some 8 billion cedis to deal with the crisis as far as bringing in the buffers concerned. And that, as you know, as George was just intimating there, is something we had no plan for. $500 million is what it's going to cost us to do this. And where are we going to find the money? The Agric Minister talks about the challenge and something that they are currently looking into, cutting some of the budget to raise the funding for this. But most importantly is a fear that this would have a devastating impact on our food security, but also food shortages. Now, I asked the Agric Minister a short while ago when they are anticipating that the food shortages will take full effect in terms of its impact when that will be felt. This is what he says.
The situation is a terrible one. We have put in the systems. We have announced the measures, and we are going to work with our partners, our stakeholders, to ensure that we are delivering the relief to the farmers and also restore their crop life.
And we've also heard about the ban you've placed tonight on rice, maize, soya beans in terms of export. How are you enforcing this?
Well, as of last week, the security agencies have been put on extremely high alert to ensure that no grains, as we know it, is leaving our borders. So that has indeed started, and the defense minister was there as part of the briefing to ensure the nation that, as has been the ban has been placed, they will enforce it to ensure that our grains are protected for the benefit of Ghana.
Based on your estimations, I heard you talk about food shortage. How soon do you expect all of us to start feeling that impact?
So the transitional zone harvest and the northern harvest should come in around the 20th of September. In fact, the early, those who planted early, we should have been seeing their grains on the market in Tamale by now. Clearly, there are no grains on the market now. But we should have the full impact by the end of September. And that is why we are putting in the interventions and now to ensure that by September, we have enough grains on the market to ensure that we don't have food shortages or distortions on our food price systems.
Well, so that's the Agric Minister.
And you go
Brian
to the market,
yeah.
listen to Brian Champon, the Agric Minister, say expect the shortages by end of September. That might strike you differently.
Yeah. Did he say what we are supposed to do in the interim, though?
In the interim is the measures that they are putting in place.
The ban?
One, exactly, including the ban on the export of grains. Mainly, we are talking about maize, rice, soya beans, and as he's just been talking about that, the defense minister is on top of this in terms of the deployment of the Ghana Armed Forces and men in uniform across the borders to enforce this. Listen to Dominic Nitiwo, who's the defense minister.
So I want to assure you to the nation that the security agencies are immediately activating their network to ensure that the ban on cereals, which has been listed, are regularly enforced so that nobody will take even a single grain out. We have the approved routes and the unapproved routes. About 80% to 90% of all exports pass through the approved routes. And so I just want to assure you that already we have a lot of security personnel. From today, we'll ensure that no truck loads of grains will leave Ghana across to anywhere. The unapproved routes, we will also get all the security agencies to ensure that even the 20% does not leave our nation. It helps us as well because we have a big problem, which is the terrorist attacks all over across the other side. So if the ban is put in place, it's enabling us to deploy actively along the borders. It will help. But security is as good as the citizens themselves. So please take advantage of, if you see something, say something, and help the security agencies as well. You yourself are security people yourselves. So as long as you see something that has escaped the eagle eye of the security, please let us know. We'll act well. We are deploying all across the borders, particularly the northern part. We are also to the east and the south. And so we'll ask citizens to support the security agencies, that if for some reason there is some unapproved route or approved route or somebody sees something that is going on that is not nice, please let us know, so that we can act appropriately. It's for the good of all of us that we should not make our citizens suffer. If we have something that is unexpected and Parliament itself is even acting, then all of us have a role to play. It's not the fault of any government that rain has not come for the last 2 months. And so all of us as citizens must ensure that we work together. It happens. And so If we work together, it's natural disaster, we should be able to overcome. So we want to assure you that we will actively ensure that the plan government has put in place or the decision government has put in place, we would enforce it to the latter. Thank you very much.
And that is the Defense Minister, Dominic Neto, talking about enforcement of the ban. And earlier we were speaking to Bismarck Owusu-Norte, he's the president of the Peasant Farmers Association. They are raising concerns already about the ban that has been imposed because it may lead to farmers being shortchanged when it comes to food prices, because if you can't export, they believe it may place a limit on how much they can charge for their foods and lead to a situation where the farmers will not get what they have invested in the growing of these crops. He joins us on the line still with us. And thank you for staying on. That is the Defense Minister talking there. They are deploying men across the borders to enforce this, but you have concerns about what this will mean for the prices which you sell, the crops that you've harvested on your farms. But this is a moment of national crisis. Personal gain definitely must give way for the collective good, is it not?
Yeah, Evans, just a quick response to the Honorable Minister of Defense. I don't think that if the right measures are in place, any farmer will take delight in exporting their produce. Why would a farmer be interested in exporting a produce when he or she knows that locally he or she can sell at a good price and recover the investment? No farmer will do that. So you don't need to put in security measures. You don't need to put in guards at the various border points. If you are very sure and certain that the measures that you are putting in place, they are comprehensive enough. Because if you put in place this ban, but farmers are getting value for the produce that they produced, they are not getting shortchanged, they are getting good value locally, I'm not sure any farmer will be interested in exporting their items. So sometimes we fail, and then we put in place measures to punish those who are victims of our policy failure. And that's what is happening.
But as part of the interventions, though, at least Evans has made it clear that indeed we are not in ordinary times. But government has decided also to provide most vulnerable farmers up to 1,000 cedis per hectare. Is that not good enough?
Yeah, I think that that's also one of the recommendations we called for. So it's not something that we have a problem with. The only challenge is that we fear it might be politicized since we are in an election period and might be an avenue for vote buying. We will therefore want to see a very comprehensive and transparent model that the ministry intends to use to do this distribution. Already, we are having issues with how inputs under the PFJ are being distributed, where politicians have been involved in the process and are giving these fertilizers and seeds to their cronies and their food soldiers. So what is the guarantee that this new grant that the ministry intends to give to the farmers who have suffered is going to be transparent, and then the actual farmers who had their crops destroyed are going to benefit?
I'm wondering where this fear is stemming from. Really, you don't trust that government would do the needful as they say they would do. This particular question came out at the press conference, and the minister clarified that it will not be done on political lines.
Well, we under the PFJ 2.0, in fact, I can give you the document to look at it. There is no mention of any involvement of any politically exposed person. But what are we witnessing now? We are witnessing MPs and DCs distributing fertilizers. So what is the guarantee that even with this one, which is just an oral assurance, we should take it seriously than what is written in the policy document? So we don't have that assurance. The only way that we can have this thing work is if we have the ministry bringing on board all stakeholders, because I heard him mention that they're bringing on board stakeholders. The challenge is that why didn't you do it even before you announced these policies? Because we will provide other alternatives and other approaches to improve upon it. So what is the guarantee that because he has said it, it's going to be done that way? That's something that we cannot trust him based on his word.
But overall,
and
though,
then
you can conclude on that.
The support on the input supply. That's also another concern that we have. That, when it comes to agricultural issues in Ghana, and when it comes to the local level implementation, we all know is the district agri directors who are supposed to lead in these places. But somehow, when these interventions are rolled out, they are sidestepped and other people take over. So until we see a very comprehensive model, a comprehensive system or mechanism by the ministry that is ensuring the transparent allocation of these inputs, I think we'll be very cautious about how we commend the ministry in that regard.
Well, Mr. Notte, wrapping up on this overall, in terms of the measures that government has announced, in terms of mitigating the impact of this particular dry spell, which he says will kick in at the end of September, would you say it would actually address the concerns that you had in terms of that looming food shortage that you talked about?
Well, I think that when you look at the interventions put in place, I think it's partly addresses some of the issues that you raised, and I think that it will make an impact. As to whether the impact will be huge to avert the possible food crisis that we highlighted, that's something that I really doubt. Because if you look at the level of devastation, if you look at the high cost of input, if you look at the fact that we are still going to rely on the rains anyway, because even as we are providing the input, the new seeds, the new fertilizers, we'll still be relying on the rains anyway. So assuming there's another rain failure, then we are back to square one.
Well, that's the president of the Peasant Farmers Association, Evans, Mr. Notte, on these measures that the government has put in place that was announced earlier today.
And you know that the government is hoping to raise some $500 million to try and deal with this crisis right now. But also the fundamental question is whether the interventions rolled out and announced today are enough to mitigate the impact and avert that food shortage. He talks about that they expect now to hit by the end of September. I want to bring in the public relations of the Agric economist who's joining us right now with thoughts on this particular matter. Robert Adu, Professor Robert Adu is a Greek economist at the KNUST. Prof, thanks for your time here on Newsnight. The ministry has laid out a raft of measures to try and mitigate the impact. Do you see these as effective to avert that crisis, that food shortage that they anticipate may hit by the end of September?
Thank you very much, Evans, and good evening to your listeners. I think that the measures look quite okay, except that they can be strengthened. For example, when you say you want to ban export of grains, they need to maybe support it with a certain purchasing regime that offers prices that are more competitive than the prices in our neighboring countries. For example, if they are selling a bag of maize at a certain price in Ivory Coast, and then the price that is offered in Ghana is far lower, farmers and business people are price sensitive, so they will be tempted to send it to the neighboring country. And we know that some of our people at the borders can be compromised. It doesn't matter how strong the security network is. And so I think that in addition to the border arrangement, they should also have a food purchasing regime where government itself is now going to offer very competitive prices so that all those who have produced those grains can sell to government. Government then stores them in our strategic warehouses, and then government begins to release them onto the market as and when we see shortages on the market. That way, we can manage the price hikes better. Even locally, if you leave it like that, we can have private people who will go into the marketplace and buy in bulk and hoard. And then it will create a certain artificial shortage, which can come in to exacerbate the situation that we are having on our hands now. And if we are not careful, the food will be in the country, but people will be hoarding them. And then they will wait when prices are extremely high. That is when they will release them onto the market and then exact some huge rent from us. So I think that government has to strengthen that. Number two, I also think that the compensation that government is proposing for farmers who have suffered some losses appears to be a bit low. Because if you say you are giving 1,000 Ghana cedis to a typical farmer for just a hectare, now if you are doing 1 acre, I think as far back as 2020, doing an acre, farmers were spending 1,200 Ghana cedis to produce maize on an acre. And in 2024, some farmers are spending as high as 6,000 Ghana cedis to produce on an acre. So if you extrapolate it to a hectare, and you say that somebody has produced on a hectare and is recording losses, and you want to compensate this person by just 1,000 Ghana cedis, I think it's on the lower side. They need to sit down with the farmer associations and see if they can push this one up a bit. But I want to support the point that was made, I don't know whether by the peasant farmers. The compensation has to be supported with some data. By now, the MIS unit of the District Department of Agriculture should be on the field already. They know the farmers who cultivated within the year. They should have some rough estimate of the losses that each and every farmer has suffered, and then that should inform the compensation that they are going to give to people. Otherwise, if you make it just blanket, then they fear that people who are not even farmers could find their way onto the list is possible. So I think that data should inform the compensation arrangement going forward.
Prof, thank you very much. That there is Professor Robert Adu, the Greek economist with the KNUST, and many of you now are joining us with your thoughts on this unfolding story with the impending food security challenge.
On 055-1111-997, also on all our social media platforms, you can hit us with that. This one says food shortages and a ban on export for a government that recently implemented planting for food and jobs. Interesting. Well, for some, in Mataiku sent that one. We have Wolanyo in Akwetia says, how can we live in Ghana and our food is not enough, but yet still some Ghanaians will be exporting some of the food out of Ghana to cause farming in the country. This is purely inhumane and unpatriotic. Lincoln in Akwetiman says, what happened to the planting for food and jobs? One village, one dam, which we were told will be the game changer. And this one also from Jones in La says, with all the huge amounts of money for planting for food and jobs 1 and 2, we are still not made sufficient. When we say this, government is a scam. Okay, lip service, he says, is what we are paying. And maybe I'll take a final one from Jones at Dubois in La. He says, unlike JM, who was straight to the point with regards to the various questions. Okay, so we'll get to that story. It's the media encounter between Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia and media in this country last night. That's what Jones is referring to. Some of your comments that you've sent in so far. Well, it's time for us to do our flats of trauma. And now, at this point, and we are heading to Adabraka Sahara. Is that your area?
That's where
very
I
close.
was raised. That's not where I was born, but that's where I grew up. And that day is a very important area in the Greater Accra Resilient and Integrated Project. You know that hailed as a country's salvation from flooding remains largely unfulfilled due to severe financial constraints as the Works and Housing Ministry struggles to complete projects. Some residents in flood-prone areas like Adabraka Sahara are taking matters into their own hands to protect their families. Mamisi Nyamiche Thompson has more in our latest episode of Flats of Trauma.
The June 3 flood disaster claimed over 150 lives, leaving behind deep scars that time has yet to heal. Today, when dark clouds gather and the first drops of rain begin to fall, the people of Odona Sahara are gripped by fear. They remember all too well the devastation that followed the rains 9 years ago.
So I was in the house, the school, when the blast, the blast was close to where I was at the time.
65-year-old Theophilus Teiko, a retired teacher, narrowly escaped death that night. He took shelter at his school before the floods took over. After agonizing hours of wait, he returned to a home wrecked beyond recognition.
When I came home in the morning from the school compound, the level to enter the house was on my chest.
It was a tragedy that exposed the vulnerabilities of our infrastructure. Government pledged to undertake some flood mitigation measures to prevent future disasters under the Greater Accra Resilient and Integrated Development Project, GARID. In all, it will take government $6 billion to permanently resolve the canker. However, consistent flow of funding is a major hurdle.
The National Flood Control Program itself has only done 3 rounds, 2018, 2020 and 2023. And it's very, very limited. If you take the Greater Accra region, for example, for all the drainage works, the concrete drainage works that need to be done, only 2% of it has been done. 2%. And so that tells you that we don't have enough well-structured channels to get water out.
The Works and Housing Minister, Kojo Oponkroma, confirmed receiving $150 million as top-up to the previous $200 million for GARID, but work on various projects will take time to complete.
What the fund will do is to help mop in some more resources beyond even the seed money that government put in, just about 1.5 million cedis. Some of our development partners, we've got some of the green funds around the world that are interested in climate resilience interventions. So our objective is to crowd in some more resources to complement what government gives us on a yearly basis. Last year, I think 98 million cedis, that was 2023. The flood control program had about 98 million cedis that was made available to add up to a bit of the drainage works across the country. And in our industry, 98 million cedis can do so much. I mean, it can do very, very little. We need to mobilize some more resources to be able to tackle the situation head on.
At Odona, Sahara, the drain constructed immediately after the disaster has not made much difference. Apart from the irresponsible waste disposal, residents complain that the drain was too narrow to facilitate the flow of water. They are living in a state of constant anxiety whenever it rains.
We don't feel safe, especially when it is the night, when people are asleep and stuff. There was a time there was a tenant in our house. He died through that because it was in the night. That's how bad the flood is. That is it. Though the drainage doesn't do anything about at all.
Raining, you said, oh, it will not come. It will not come. Before you realize it has started coming to the house, you are there. You have to run outside. I called them when the rain is falling. I called them. They said it has come to window level.
Theophilus has constructed what he describes as a safe house. It's his way of keeping the people he cares about safe, at least until proper interventions are made.
So far we have managed. That's all I can say, because if you are in a struggle, by all means, you have to find your out.
How many people can this space take?
It can take as much as 10 persons.
10 people.
Oh, okay. Dredging of the Odaw River Basin began in March after the project stalled in 2022. Works and Housing Minister Kojo Oponkroma, on a tour of the site, hoped that the effort will mitigate the flooding in surrounding areas. But residents say the impact is yet to be felt.
The Odaw is choked. There's so much filth in it. Whenever it rains, it overflows its banks. Even the dredging machines are no longer here except for one, but it can't do the job.
9 years on, the nightmare is far from over. Residents are hoping that the GARID interventions will reach them soon enough. Mami Esi Nyamiche Thompson for Joy News.
Beautiful story there told by my colleague Mamisi. It's our Flats of Trauma series. Another edition comes your way same time. Let's do business. Now, George, we're focusing on agric and the dry spell and the impact on the economy. Tell us more.
And the finance minister has been talking about how this could also have some serious impact on the economy with growth and inflation affected badly. We'll be getting you more details on that one. A National Petroleum Authority modifies the license requirement to help check a number of oil marketing firms in the country. The business news on Newsnight is brought to you by MTN Business. Welcome to the new world of business.
The other day, I visited Kweku at his spunky new office to congratulate him on opening his business. And man, was I impressed. The business is just moving quick. The sales, customers, everything is just working seamlessly. The secret? He said,
it's MTN Business Broadband. In this fast-paced environment, we need fast and reliable internet to support all business types. No laggy online meetings, great download and upload speeds, impeccable business management systems, all inclusive. I mean, you can have it all.
Sharp! I signed on immediately.
To enable your business stay ahead and stay connected, make sure you're signed on to the best internet made just for businesses. MTN Business Broadband. Sign up today on broadband.mtn.com.gh and manage your account on my MTN app. Call 0244 308 111 for more information. We are good together everywhere you go.
Are you ready to turn your dreams into reality? Don't just dream it, own it with a loan from Fidelity Bank. Dreaming of a new home? Own it with Fidelity Mortgage Loan. Dreaming of smelling the scent of a brand new tear rubber car? Own it with Fidelity Auto Loan. Dreaming of getting the latest phone, TV, fridge, furniture, laptop or gaming console? Own it with Fidelity Consumer Asset Finance. Dreaming of expanding your business? Make it a reality with our business loan. Fidelity Bank is offering flexible loans to businesses, salaried workers and the self-employed at a competitive rate. Dial 0800 003355 or visit any of our branches nationwide today to turn your dream into reality with a Fidelity Bank loan. Terms and conditions apply. Fidelity Bank. Believe with us.
Fidelity. If I believe with us, Fidelity. If I know I dey your side, Fidelity.
Hooray! Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited's back-to-school promotion is here with us once again. From August to September this year, Kingdom Books and Stationery Limited is giving a generous 10 to 20% discount on all school items like textbooks, pens, pencils, erasers, exercise books, and much more across all our branches in Accra, Tema, Kumasi, Takrade, Winneba, and Cape Coast. Parents, teachers, and students, please hurry while stocks last. For more information, call us on 0506 487 557 or 0302 764 209 or via email at info@kingdomgh.com. You can also visit our website www.kingdomstoreonline.com. Kingdom Books, where quality and affordability are both assured. Terms and conditions apply.
Supposed to happen when we find the reason.
We have a new leader in town. Obiarenti. Amanfo. Madam was Sibebre. When him say my baby, maybe mamu more charcoal for whiter teeth. More charcoal. Not only that, maybe mamu lemon. More lemon. Zinc for fresher breath. More zinc. And fluoride for stronger teeth.
Introducing the new President Charcoal packed with more power with a combination of charcoal and lemon for naturally whiter teeth. Grab yours now. This advert is FDA approved.
The luckiest.
Star 712 hash.
Luck is everywhere. For everyone, yeah. The luckiest.
Star 712 hash.
Luck is everywhere. For everyone, yeah.
Doctors.
Nurses.
Barbers.
Drivers.
Bouncers.
Friends.
Teachers.
Bankers.
You could be the luckiest. You could be the luckiest.
Let's go.
The luckiest.
Star 712 hash.
Luck is everywhere. For everyone, yeah. The luckiest.
Star 712 hash.
Luck is everywhere. For everyone, yeah.
Doctors.
Nurses.
Barbers.
Drivers.
Bouncers.
Friends.
Teachers.
Bankers.
Star 712 hash.
You could be the luckiest.
You're welcome back to Business on Newsnight. Now, Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam is warning of serious impact on the economy as a result of the dry spell situation in the northern part of Ghana. The minister is worried about how this could affect inflation going forward. Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam has been speaking at a media briefing in Accra. He's also worried about how this development could affect growth going forward.
Our growth trajectory is in danger. Economic growth is in danger. We also look at it from the perspective of pricing. We have seen for some time now inflation trending down, and our expectation is that we end the year with an inflation rate of 15%. I am very optimistic that we will make significant progress. But we also know that our inflation basket is dominated by food inflation. When you see food shortage and therefore the effect on prices, you should expect that inflation will respond, and will respond in the way that you do not want.
Finance Minister Dr. Mohamed Amin Adam. Meanwhile, government is looking at raising 8 billion Ghana cedis to support the country's food security situation. According to the minister, this will be a combination of funds from the contingency fund, budget realignment, and the country's development partners. In a later development, the Agric Minister Brian Champon has been giving details on support for the affected farmers.
Government has decided to provide financial support amounting to 1,000 Ghana cedis per hectare to the most vulnerable among these farmers as partial cover for their investment. Government will also provide affected vulnerable farmers with some food grant to enable them meet their minimum nutritional requirement. Input support, seed replanting assistance. For farmers whose crops have failed due to the lack of rain, we will be launching a replanting support program. This will include the provision of fast maturing seeds that can still be planted within the remaining window of the season. Farmers who need to replant will also be provided with grant fertilizers to ensure that they can still achieve a reasonable yield. Planting for Food and Jobs is focused on input credit, but for the affected farmers who have lost their investment.
And that is Agric Minister Brian Champon. Let's still stay on the sector because economist Professor Peter Korte has described the planned support for the agri sector by the Development Bank Ghana as a good move. Now, the bank is planning to set aside more than 1 billion Ghana cedis from next year to support the sector. Professor Peter Korte believes that this could go a long way to deal with challenges facing the sector.
It's very ambitious, but that is the way to go because agric is the backbone of our country. And if, from what he's saying, we are trying to push more into agriculture, I think I support that. ADB is doing the same. In a couple of years back, it was giving about 10% of his portfolio to agric. Now he's doing about 22, 23%. And the medium-term target is to get to 50%. So the Development Bank is also pushing that. That is good. I would urge them to target irrigation, get into large-scale irrigation for farmers as well, because we cannot continue to depend on the weather and expect that when we provide credit to agriculture, it will do well and repay some of the loans. So yes, good to target medium, small-scale farming, but earmark some funds to promote irrigated agriculture.
And that is economist Professor Peter Korte. The National Petroleum Authority says that it has reviewed licensing requirements to help deal with the number of marketing firms operating in the country. Some industry players have raised concerns about the number of firms looking at the size of the economy. A communications manager at the National Petroleum Authority, Mohammed Kudus, says they are working on these issues.
There will be modification of the requirements as we move along, and the environment as it is today actually accepts the structure that we are operating within. As and when we feel that there's something that we need to do, we'll look at it again. If you followed, you realize that there's been a review into the mandatory distance between two filling stations, just as it were to make use of the times and be able to move along with the changing situation. So as and when we feel that there's a certain aspect of our route that we need to tweak, we will do that, because we ought to be mindful of the changing times and act to reflect same. So we are reviewing our processes, and we believe that the environment within which they are operating today is good enough, even though one would still have a challenge or two. Take, for example, the period within which they are supposed to take the levies margins and account for same.
Mohammed Abdul Kudus is the communications manager at the National Petroleum Authority. And that's all for business on Newsnight.
And George, thank you very much. So live your Newsnight is on Joy 99.7 FM. And victims of the Akosombo Dam spillage are preparing to sue government over the lack of action to resettle and compensate victims of the spillage that happened last year. MPs in the communities affected by the spillage are up in arms against the Interministerial Committee set up by the President for doing just that, alleviating the suffering. The committee is chaired by a Chief of Staff with a number of other top ministers as members were tasked to consider resettlement and compensation for the victims. But nearly 1 year after the disaster, MPs for the area say neither them nor their community leaders have been contacted by committee members. Speaking during a stakeholder hearing on the disaster, the MPs expressed their anger about the state of affairs.
You heard government set up a 30-member committee. We are the Interministerial Committee. To be very honest with you, we are very disappointed that that committee has not met us even once. Not once. I mean, a lot of the members, we are in parliament with them. I would have thought that even if it's parliament, we can meet here. We can even meet at the cafeteria, even over coffee. That, share data with us or tell us what is happening, you know. Not one meeting. Not so. We don't know if it was just maybe an announcement for the public for some cosmetic reason, but we don't know. And the chiefs, time without number. They will even call us. You are in parliament with them. When is the committee coming? And we can provide answers.
Played a very major role. The chiefs brought all of us together. I mean the MPs and the DCs, they also formed a 13-member committee in anticipation of the arrival of the 13-member ministerial committee so that we could brief them about all that was going on. But until up to date, we have never cited that committee in our district.
Well, so let's bring in Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent Kweku Asante. He sat through that hearing today, joins us in studio. Kweku, let's talk about the claim, particularly made by Okudzeto Ablakwa, that they are going to sue in the coming days.
Well, yes, this is a comment that Ablakwa has made some time back, and they say that in the next few weeks they're actually going to file a class action suit against the government because they believe government is being negligent in dealing with their concerns. They say they're speaking among themselves. In the next few days, if government does not come up with a compensation and settlement plan, they are going to court.
We have met, and we don't want this to be hidden from you. We have said that if government does not do something about compensation, we have spoken to our lawyers. We are headed to court because it is our right. So we don't want to hide this from you. If in the next few weeks, because next month will be the first anniversary, so we have met and said that if by the first anniversary we don't get strong indication, we don't see actually the first group of people receiving compensation, then we have no choice but to resort to the courts for class action for all the victims to receive compensation. Because as Togbe said, it's like we've been forgotten, totally abandoned.
Well, so at that level, but we'll get to hear from him shortly. But first, in fact, let's hear from Okudzeto Ablakwa. That's why you play it. Calm down.
Honorable Chair, government made available an amount of 200 million to start the process. We've sent a memo to Cabinet about various options, how to proceed in resolving this issue. In all, we projected about 600 million cedis to do the project. But currently we have 200 million cedis. So if you are to do it in a year, it means that we need 600 million to be released for the resettlement process. If it's going to be 2 years, then it means that we need additional 100 million to make it additional 200 to make it 4, so that we can fast track it and do it in 2 years. If it's to be 3 years more, then we need 200 million every year to.
So that's the chief director of the Works and Housing Ministry. I beg your pardon. So he was giving updates on what exactly they would need for the resettlement.
Yes, that is Reverend Stephen Yawose, the chief director of the ministry, providing some updates. 200 million so far released by the government. They see they would need about 400 million to be able to totally resettle all the persons affected in all the various constituencies.
Let's talk a bit more about this ad hoc committee and the work that they'll be doing. Do we know how long it's going to take? Where exactly are we?
Well, the Speaker of Parliament did give them 1 month, starting the 1st of August to the end of the month. They have already gone to the constituencies to do some familiarization visit, and they are back in Accra now to do stakeholder consultation. Today, they met all the MPs, the DCs, all the other persons from the affected communities, and as far as they are concerned, they are just about to conclude their work, and we do not expect them to hold any public hearing. They'll put together their report. We are not aware if they are going to take the report on the 3rd of September when the House reconvenes for that emergency sitting, or they wait for the House to reconvene either at the end of October or early November.
Okay, that's Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante there giving us updates on the committee's work so far. Let's do sports. We lost Sven Goran today, but really this evening, what's up?
Well, the Ghana Football Association is holding their 30th Ordinary Congress ahead of the start of the new season. It's happening at the Ghana Man Soccer Center of Excellence. It started today and is expected to, among the issues that we're looking forward to being addressed is a new broadcast partner for the Ghana Premier League following the exit of Star Times. Reports have suggested that GTV Sports Plus might come into the picture, but we understand it's going to be top of the agenda at the Congress, which will officially start tomorrow. Victor Achutamaklo has been on the grounds and filed this report on what's been happening today.
The leadership of the Ghana Football Association and the 18 Premier League clubs are expected to clarify whether or not the league will begin on the 6th of September, as previously communicated. The GFA is also expected to brief members on its efforts to secure a broadcast partner for the league, as well as its annual financial statements for the past year and approval of its budgets for the new year. The GFA is also expected to give an update on its investments into the Ghana Man Soccer Center of Excellence at Pram Pram to give it a facelift.
That's Victor Achutamaklo. I'll bring you more update in our bulletins on that FA Congress happening. Well, over the weekend in Sontraman advanced to the next stage of the CAF Confederations Cup after defeating Elect Sport in Cameroon. Then on Sunday, FC Samatex, the Ghana Premier League champions, also defeated Victoria United 2-0 on aggregate to advance to the next stage of the competition. Well, the head coach, Amadou Nouridine, is already looking forward to their game in the next round.
I think that we need to grow. We need to be tactically awake a little more. We have certain things that we shouldn't be doing at this stage. But I think that it's a young team, and so we will grow into maturity as the game progresses. We anticipate a very tough side because Raja is an experienced team. They are experienced in the champions, but we will give them a match of their lives.
Reading Amadou there. Evans, that's it for sports.
Thank you very much, Musbao, with the latest from the world of sports. Now, after months of uncertainty and complaints, President Akufo-Addo today broke grounds for the commencement of the expansion works on the Accra-Tema motorway.
Well, the first phase of the project, which is expected to cost about $380 million, will bring huge relief to motorists who have described the pothole-ridden stretch as a death trap. And I used it this morning, and many of you are currently on that road heading home, possibly speaking at the sword-cutting ceremony to mark the commencement of the project. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Mohammed Amin Adam, indicated that the rehabilitation, which involves expanding the 19.5-kilometer road into a 10-lane expressway, will cost an estimated $660 million.
And the time has come to renew and expand this motorway to meet the needs of a modern and rapidly developing Ghana. The total cost of the entire project scope of work is $660 million US, with the first section alone requiring $380 million US. Through the strategic leadership of our government and the Ghana Infrastructure Investment Fund, we have secured $380 million US in equity and viability gap funding.
Well, we can hear from the President, Akufo-Addo, indicating that the project, which is a private-public partnership, has been awarded to a Ghanaian contractor.
I'm particularly pleased to note that the contractor for the first phase of this project is Messrs. Maripoma Enterprise Limited, a wholly owned Ghanaian company. This is a testament to the capability, and ingenuity of our domestic enterprises, and I'm confident that they will deliver this project to the highest standards.
So that's President Akufo-Addo there. Now let's focus on last night's encounter. It was been a busy weekend from the NDC's manifesto launch in Winneba. Last night, also Sunday, we had a media encounter with the Vice President and leader of the NPP, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. Among the issues that came up, you know that the issue about the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you, and amongst others, teachers are suffering, doctors are suffering. These questions came up, plus the issue about corruption and, of course, the anti-LGBTQ bill, the proper human sexual family values bill. There's no proper anymore. So these are questions, a wide range of questions that were posed to the flag bearer, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. We'll focus also on the press freedom. But let's start with Faustina Safo's highlights of this media engagement.
Head of our political desk at Joe News posed a critical question concerning the controversial anti-LGBTQ bill.
As president, will you sign the promotion of Ghanaian sexual rights and family values bill?
The bill is before Supreme Court, and once it's out of the Supreme Court and they declare it as constitutional, I believe that signing is automatic. No ifs and no buts.
The media engagement then took a historical turn, revisiting comments made by the flag bearer during his 2020 campaign.
Mr. Vice President, you will remember this quote: if the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you.
If the fundamentals are weak, the exchange rate will expose you, which is a truism. It was true then, and it's still true today. When we came into office, during the first term before we hit COVID, between 2017 and 2019, you saw the fundamentals pretty much strengthening by all accounts. The biggest shock for the economy came in 2022. So you're looking at a situation this year. Why is the depreciation lower? Because the fundamentals have strengthened. The fiscal deficit is under 5%. We are running a primary surplus. The reserves are increasing, and the Gold for Oil program is helping.
Highlights of last night's encounter, and we can take maybe a few highlights also from the manifesto launch. Maxwell Agbagba was there.
It was a day of speeches, policies and plans for the future that will be implemented if the NDC is elected. The NDC flag bearer John Mahama criticized the President Akufo-Addo-led government, describing it as a failure.
This MPP administration has been the biggest political scam that has been pulled on Ghanaians since our independence in 1957.
Key among the promises in the NDC manifesto is the implementation of the 24-hour economy to create jobs, the establishment of a women's development bank, the implementation of the big push, which the NDC flag bearer John Mahama says will invest $10 billion to drive growth and lift the size of the economy if he wins. The NDC flag bearer John Mahama vowed to hit the ground running in his first 120 days in office.
And that's Maxo Agbagba's report, and we are getting ready for the big one. The Joy News National Dialogue on Defending Media Freedom is just 3 days away, and we've been hearing, commitment from many. And the hashtag Defend Media Freedom GH is still on. You can join the discussion as we prepare for the Joy News National Dialogue this Thursday. Now, I know you've been meeting some of our big speakers for the day.
Yeah.
Tell us more.
And we met the IGP today. He's agreed to be part and deliver a statement to us all. It's very important, as you know, going into the elections to have that partnership, and he's been very kind to accept to be there. So we're expecting to see him. We have other dignitaries also going to come. We cannot have an election without the media. As you know, everybody doing from the SIF all the way to when the EC declares will be glued to their sets, to their radios, to the social media handles. And so imagine all of us decide on the SIF to go on strike. To go on strike. What will happen? So that's why, yes, let's imagine it for a second. That is why you need to be at our event this Thursday. It's all because we are leading up to that, and we've been battered sometimes, bruised, beaten, and assaulted, and we want to have a conversation.
With the pain.
Exactly. Yes, we were talking about media freedom, but also responsibility. So we're bringing all stakeholders, both home and abroad, together for that big conversation on Thursday. Is at 4 p.m.
I look forward to that, and that's how we wrap up tonight's edition.
And it's at the Nat Hall, if you're wondering.
Hall, yes, here in Accra, and we wrap up News Night for now. There's more when you log on to myjoyonline.com. It's a Monday, and Nanan Sakwal that's my opinion. What's our topic?
Resetting or upgrading.
Okay. So we
it's an interesting one.
Resetting. Okay. All right. We'll stay for that. I am MFR Powell.
My name is Evans Mensah.